Let's go.
Okay, I'm pressing the button. Okay, I think we are live. Hello, everyone. We are doing, okay, I don't know the number. I know Robert always say, this is number, but I have no idea what number this should be.
So officially, it's number 10.
Okay, this is the number 10 GVDS Showcase. And today we have this section with Team Deckard. We have Laura and Mehmet in the call. So just to give you a little background in case you have not been following, this GVDS Showcase is to give an overview of what the team have during their global virtual design sprint section. So we will be going through what challenge that they picked on, how did they come up into the ideas, what solution that they picked on, and then in the end, what did the outcomes is for the user testing. And in the very end, we will be also doing a little section of Q&A. So before further ado, I'll just pass it to Laura, if you could introduce the team, and I'll just start sharing the screen in a second.
Hi, thank you, Sandy. Yes, so we were to be Team Deckard, and in the call is myself and Mehmet. Mehmet did the facilitation. He, as you can see, I've just get my screen back. Okay. So Mehmet's a design thinking coach, and as I said, he was a facilitator for the sprint, and he resides in Germany. Then there was Team Deckard. He is a product designer for a company called QE, and he is located in Czech Republic. Also, Yadi is a UX designer in the same company, also in the Czech Republic. Then we have Marco, who's a product designer, also based in Germany. Myself, Laura, I'm a program coordinator in a company called A-Train, again in Germany. Valentina, she's a service designer facilitator. She's based in Amsterdam. Sabrina, who's an innovation facilitator, also based in Germany. She was helping with like an advisory role within the sprint. And then Morten, also a design sprint facilitator, an advisor, and he is located in Denmark. So yeah, there was a lot of already experienced sprinters, design sprinters within the team.
Awesome. Shall we move on to the big idea then?
Sandy, sorry, you're on mute.
Okay, I'm on mute. Yeah, I was just saying, thank you for the introduction. And since Mehmet, you are also in the call, maybe you would, if you have anything to add to your introduction, maybe you can also talk a little bit about your superpower. What is the one thing or few things that you are very good at, just to get people to know you a little bit better.
Yeah. So, right, my background was that I worked for Accenture for 7 years in several occasions. And I also did design thinking coaching over there. And I was also being known for coming up with unorthodox solutions and being able to somehow implement them as well. So I think that is the surprise moment seems to be something which seems to be my superpower. That's one part, and the other part maybe also to always try to see the connection of what we're doing to what is next or what was beforehand. So connected thinking.
Oh, thank you. And Nora, what would be your superpower?
I don't know if it's a superpower, but I like to get a kind of a deeper understanding of things. So in some areas of the sprint, I would ask prodding questions to get kind of different people's perspective. And I think maybe it doesn't always work in the sprint kind of environment. But I think a lot of us were doing this for the same time, and we were thinking, especially in this circumstance, how can we utilize our learners for the future? So to get a deeper understanding and asking provoking questions, I think in this scenario was helpful, but in a normal design sprint, maybe not so much.
Actually, I can just contradict to that. Your questions were very helpful, Laura.
Thank you.
Cool. So seems like your team has chosen a challenge that is very, very related to all of us here. So Laura, would you like to go a little bit, elaborate on what challenge you chose and how did you come up with that and the journey that you went through during the design sprint?
Yeah, I think on this aspect, a lot of credit goes to Mehmet for coming up with this question. Coming up to the design sprint, we actually had a different challenge. But as we were talking later, we have like interviewees prior to starting the sprint, and we did struggle to find interviewees based on the original challenge we came up to. So Mehmet, being the great facilitator that he was, kind of quickly thought of an alternative. How could we ensure that we're ready for the sprint, and came up with this idea. I think part of it was because we kind of encompassed two elements of one that Sabrina had done a sprint before, and it was to do with a project in Kampala that she was really interested in, wanted to see how we could continue that. And we combined it with working remotely. So we kind of dropped the Kampala bit, but we continued with the remote idea. And this, I don't know, Mehmet, if you want to add to how you kind of came with on the process into this big idea of how might we help GVDS participants apply GVDS learnings to their professional life.
Well, it was just, I think we were a little bit progressing with the time, and I just saw the need to find a target group where we can actually interview them, where at the same time it should somehow, of course, be interesting for everyone inside the group. And since we're all interested in learning remote sprints, then of course the question is, how can we apply it afterwards? So why don't we just take that as a starting point and then go from there? So that was just the original thinking, and then based on that the whole team kicked off, and luckily they were also having the same opinion to move on with it.
And I think just to add to that, it was I think a part of the thinking as well was we would be able to quickly find a user group. We were we already had access to users.
So once you have that problem statement, and I guess you did like a problem framing workshop with that to come up with that statement, or how did you come up with that?
I think Mehmet, again, we didn't do the proper product framing workshop. We had kind of done it a little bit when we were thinking of remote working, and Mehmet just proposed this within the group, asked for any feedback or anyone's difference of opinion, and nobody had any, so we were happy to go with it. So a little bit different to the normal process, but as Mehmet said, due to time constraints, we just proceeded in this method.
So imagine you had 3 days prior to the sprint start, and usually you would need maybe approximately 7 to 9 days to just find users, schedule the timings, and then etc., trying to interview them, and we didn't have the time. So we said, okay, well, we need to shortcut that, and based on that we said, okay, well, why don't we find a problem statement which might somehow be obvious, and then go with that.
Great, thank you. I was looking for the unmute button there. So once you have the problem statement, would you like to walk us through how was your experience during the design sprint? What is the journey that you have taken on? what maybe you can also talk a little bit about the challenges that you have came across, also some of the highlights during the week.
Yeah, so we came up with how might we help the participants share their learnings and knowledge as an advantage to others internally and externally. I think when it came to like internally and externally, that's quite broad. At the time, I mean, we did a lot of the times not necessarily go off track, but Momit was a really key person, I think, in this role. Always had to get us going back to make sure that we were kind of keeping in line with our kind of statements and what we were looking to do. And I think maybe going back, this is one of the things that was at a not such a good advantage of just going in and having a problem statement without really going through a process of thinking about it properly. We had to do quite a bit of reflection during the sprint to make sure that we were really aligned. We really knew the meaning of what we wanted to do. And I think at the end, it was a little bit clear that maybe we did think about alignment at the beginning. But as that aside, when we come to the prototype, I think we were all really proud of what we achieved. So yes, we had like a bit of a internal and external kind of, I don't know, misalignment at stages. So I guess for this is like, how can we make companies want this type of facilitation so there is a demand to learn and utilize? And then how can we make people feel confident enough to trust a potential tool as a facilitation coach? A very, very different, like how you present something for your own learning and how you present something to a company would be very different in a prototype anyway. Later on, iterations, yeah. So, and then again, putting people into their learners into practice so they don't forget over time. So those two, second and the third one, are quite aligned. The first one about companies is on a kind of a slightly different spectrum when we kind of wanted to focus for a design sprint first iteration.
And I see here that you had a long-term goal of in 2 years of time, anyone will be able to learn and facilitate any type of section autonomously.
Yeah. So yes, and we still, when in reflection, that we are happy with this statement. Maybe, except for the session, which should be more definitive, as in a design sprint session, or like a workshop or a virtual session. The session word is not specific, or yeah, it's a little bit too broad on what that session means.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, apart from that, I think we, as you'll see later, we were quite pleased on what we achieved in line with that.
Okay, so maybe then let's dive into the solution stage where I see the storyboard here. Mm-hmm. And Mehmet, would you like to talk a little bit about how you guys translate the problem statements, the ideas, all this long-term goal and all that into this storyboard here?
Oh, that's still the part of Laura. I can also do that, but we just aligned that.
Sure.
That that it's that we I have my my responsibility afterwards.
All right, Laura.
Okay, so Norman, we all went offline, came up with different ideas of how this could look like. It wasn't too detailed, like it was like 3 post-its or 3 kind of pictures on an A4 piece of paper. And we went through them and discussed them. Nobody admitted ownership to any, and this was something that we were like kind of clarifying during the process. It was very important that nobody admitted ownership to anything. It was quite like an open discussion, and another person would like talk about it wouldn't be the owner that would talk about the particular idea. So at the end, we liked elements of more than one idea, so we kind of combined it. And so we decided that we were going to do like a platform online, and within here it would be a way to record a virtual design sprint, a way to share the sprints, the experiences, and then add in main goals of your workshops. You'd have a recording, you'd have images, you'd have text blocks and collaboration. So it was a way that you could document your experiences, your learnings, but also make it so that you could get feedback, or you could collaborate with other people, be it a mentor, your manager, somebody that you wanted to like share your learnings with, but also get some feedback later on. And then on the fourth screen, you can see that during the video there would be an option to stop and maybe add notes. And then when we go down to the fifth, about sharing your story, and then publishing it.
Are you referring to this screen that I'm zooming in?
Yeah, so a little bit, on the, okay. So we've got, you're on the sixth one. So that would be where people could write their comments. Also, if you go down a little bit, there's a post that we can get maybe a facilitation coach. And so there was like lots of different ideas to try and put into this prototype, so that you've got like images, video, a place where you could write notes, a place where you could share to get collaboration, you could get feedback, what you keep as private, what you want to share, and then have a library that you could access other people's information as well. And for me, I mean, looking at this and then thinking how like Tim and Yadi did the prototype, I'm really impressed with their ability. That's a superpower for sure. So I'm happy to move over to the prototype.
Okay. Are they clickable, or are they just images here?
No. We could go on to Figma. I didn't look for the clickable one. When we did the user story, we used the clickable one.
Okay.
But I wasn't so comfortable going through that now, in case we kind of wasted time with me not doing such. But maybe Mehmet, you could get the link for Sandy and put it in the chat, and then if you want to go through the clickable version, we could. And in the meantime, I'm happy to just go through the first screen. So this would be like, this is the first screen that they saw about, like, we're running a remote sprint recently, and then you could upload your own recording, or you've got like a watch live sessions or a story library, and then you can publish stories. And then we can go on to the next screen. You can see at the top that there's like an uploading, there's a video currently uploading there. So like, you know, we recorded our sessions from the sprint. And so this would be like a library, a place that you could keep those recordings. And then there's also a link where you could put the mural template, and then you've got your pictures. If there's like certain aspects of the mural that you wanted to capture more closely in like one place, you could put your picture.
The link is in the chat, by the way.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And then on the next screen, on the same screen again, you'd name your project, the long-term goal. So this is like something that would be shared with others later on, or you could keep it to your own, more personal. So you could put your long-term goal, what the sprint questions were, and what your biggest up and biggest down was.
Okay, so I opened the clickable version, so I assume this is the first screen, and we're here, right?
Yeah, yeah. So the next screen then is like an example of you've already kind of filled in those.
Oh,
so you can see at the bottom, yeah. So some of these you can click through. So when we did our user testing, there were some elements that you could click. Oh yeah, you could tab across. So this is an example of like some of the boxes being filled up. So the project name's been put in, the long-term goal, the example of what's been put in, and the sprint questions. It's still uploading the video. So yeah, and everything else is more or less the same. There's no comments or anything at the bottom yet because we haven't shared this. So this would still be private to the owner of the sprint or the project that was being uploaded. So if we go on to the next screen, please, Sandy, do you want to go into the next screen? Or I think if you go down the bottom, there's just like.
Is this?
Yeah, if you can see it.
I click on, this is screen number 4, right?
Yeah. So I'm happy.
The next one?
I'm happy to go through the sequence like with the tabs at the bottom, or if you want, I know if you hit different tabs within the screen, it doesn't necessarily go to the full screen. So here's an example where you've got the link to the mural already. You've got some photos put up, and yeah, some other things. So then you would maybe publish your story, or you'd share your story on Slack or wherever, whatever kind of platforms that are linked up to it. So yeah, maybe you could press the send and see what happens.
It's not letting me. Do I need to click on anything else?
Or you could go down the bottom and just go to the next screen.
Okay.
If maybe if you put your cursor right at the bottom, the option to go to screen 5 comes up.
I'm at screen 6 right now.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, so the story has been shared. And then that's like privately shared, and then you can publish it. And if you publish it, it's on like the library, and we will see the library further on. So you could publish it, or yes, we could go on to screen 9. Yep, you've published it, so you could view your story. And if you see at the top, you've got the view the story library, or watch live sessions. So yeah, if you want to go into view your view story library, I think up the top. I don't know if that's a click. No, it's not a clickable one.
No.
Okay, and just go back to the next screen. It's easier. So here is yeah, this is where you would be able to see your own sprint. So you've got the day 1, you've got day 2, and you've got the different tabs, and you've got the different videos from each one. So this is your personal library. And then also, I think on the last screen is where you've got, yeah.
Oh, I see my name there, by the way.
Yeah. Yeah, so this is a library as well. So up the top is your personal bit, and then down below, this is like the library of all other people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also the idea was here at the top part to have the possibility, for example, if you're in a situation where you would like to look up if you go to the top, where you say, for example, I would like to perform a sprint map, but I would like to see how others did it. Yeah, so you don't necessarily go through all of the individual stories, but only through the sprint map of those stories to see and compare. So you just then would click on sprint map and then see based on different stories, different sprint maps, and can compare how they did it and then how you would like to do it yourself. Yeah, that was one of the ideas. Okay, sorry, back to you, Laura.
Thank you. Yeah, and so on the last, I mean, again, this is just a prototype, isn't it? So it's just keep in mind that this was the first version, which as I want to repeat it, give all credit to those designers. I think I forgot to include Marco as well for the original, the first version. And obviously we had user feedback after that, which has not been implemented. Not that we don't want to, it just hasn't been, because we haven't had the time to do it. So then if we go on to the screen 9, please, which is the last one, I believe. And this is just an example of, you can see up the top who it's been shared with. I think we've got like 17 people. And down below, examples of feedback comments. So, you know, you could invite somebody to come along, and if they're kind of coaching you, or they're your mentor, or there is somebody else in the group, or there's open space for comments and feedback there. So yeah, thank you. That's all of the prototype. And yeah, I'm going to pass over
That's
to.
really cool.
Thank you. Yeah. So now I want to pass over to Mehmet, who, as I said, will give more depth into what the user's experience was following their, when they looked at that first prototype.
Right. So we can start with a negative comments, maybe. Well, the thing is, basically what they didn't. So our initial thinking of saying, okay, well, we talk about stories is because whenever we learn something, the best way, or one of the good ways to learn it, would be to think of stories of other people, how they did it, and then how I can apply what I want to apply, instead of having some kind of abstract ways to go through them. But it was not necessarily so. Without a proper explanation, there was some kind of confusion about what we mean by story in the context of design sprints. That's one part. Also, an overall explanation of what it is and why would be good, especially to people which are new to design sprints and also new to this concept. Of course, we inside the GVDS would go through the website and say, okay, well, that's self-explanatory, but people not knowing all of this, they might want to know more and understand more. Yeah. And also there were concerns over property rights. So meaning, for example, imagine you work something out for your client and you would like to put it online, to gather feedback. Of course, then the question is, is that something that would be possible, and if so, how? Definitely, this is something which we would need to dig into if we would like to follow up. And the last part, which is a little bit more above, it was about, in general, concerns. If I, for example, do some kind of trial run, so one of the users said, okay, well, I just want to try out some maybe new tools or some new topics with a design sprint, and some things go sideways, then I would not want to my client to see that, because it should be some kind of a safe space. So how can we ensure that it's a safe space and not that visible, so that it actually has also visibility on the client side? Yeah. If we come to the informational statements, so the thing is, people immediately understood that this is a learning platform, and they were okay with it, so it was understandable. It was not quite understandable what live means. So on the homepage, you were able to click on live. So basically, people which are currently in some kind of session, they would also be able to share that on YouTube, and then you could see how they interact with each other, and then based on that, you could basically say, okay, interesting, the discussion. If that discussion comes up in our session, then we'll do it similarly and have some learnings, feedback on the learnings of those guys. Yeah, and that was not quite clear on the meaning of the word, and also what immediately attracted the people, that they said, okay, well, so if I want to share something and I want to get feedback, or if I want to document anything, what documentation is something where people shy back and say, oh, that's somehow has a lot of effort, and then telling the people up front that it just takes 5 minutes gave them a feeling of, oh, that's quick. Yeah, so that could be interesting. And then also make a story could be about writing. That's interesting because for us it's not about the story per se that you write a blog or something like that, but it's rather about pasting your stuff in and then put a couple of explaining remarks. So we might need to think about how to rephrase that so that people understand what we mean by story. If we get to the insight part. Sandy, still there? I think she has a lag. I just move on with the parts which are visible. So an interesting part was that, or insight was that people perceived it as some kind of an online co-working space, meaning you can at one side put your stuff in, but then also at the other side you have a connection towards, for example, Slack, or Slack was just an example, but it could also, for example, be Microsoft Teams or any other platform where you could basically integrate that towards, so that you can share it openly, get feedback, and then work back again on the platform. Yeah, and also it's also what it is perceived as. Maybe it's for people which just start their design sprint journey. Yeah, so maybe they have some kind of bootcamp done or participated at the GVDS, and they would like to deepen it with a couple of more tests, and they know a couple of people already with which they would like to share it. Then that would also be possible. Sandy, I think we are the users able to see the screen? Oh yeah, they are. Okay, that's fine.
Yeah, I got cut off. Could you share your screen?
I can also share my screen. Oh, let me see.
Sorry about that.
No worries, all good. Here we go. Share. Right.
Yeah, I see it.
Is my okay? Great. Right. So. Right. So it would be basically for people which are new to design sprints, have done maybe some kind of bootcamp or the GVDS as mentioned, and then would like to deepen more, get back into or learn more about design sprints and experiencing them, and then gather feedback, active feedback from other mentors or participants. Yeah. And also what they would like to see is some kind of additional facilitator tips or templates where they can basically choose whatever they need and apply them. And also the library, or the word library, they were quite attracted to that word because they would immediately understand, oh, there is something behind it where I can see how other people did it. Yeah. So I think that was quite a good catch there for them to also have this metaphor. Right. What was definitely good, yeah, overall, we were surprised on how, because we were a little bit during the whole sprint, we were a little bit, I think, hard on ourselves, and we were like, yeah, would people like that? And we would try to be not perfect, but we would try to improve it as much as possible. And then we were very surprised on what kind of feedback they gave us on the platform, which then, as Laura said, we were a little bit proud of ourselves in how to see how they reacted towards our solution. Yeah? They, for example, said I would definitely invite my colleagues to this platform, and this is also one of the parts which we're aiming towards. Yeah, so people, experience it, they say, "Oh, that's awesome," yeah, and then get back to the company and then try to apply it there, and also invite their colleagues over. And also, it's that it's easy for others to see what I've worked on. That's something, of course, that enables people to gather actually the feedback and learn from that. And also, of course, that the way, and this the huge credit again to Tim and Yari, that they made it or created the way that the elements are easy to understand, and and also it's quite easy to publish. And also one last remark is definitely, I mean, although it's a platform, a platform lives from a community which is somehow interacting with each other, and that we build some kind of open platform where people are able to get back to their own communities, for example, in Slack or in Microsoft Teams or wherever they might like to share it, gather feedback over there, and then come back to the platform in order to incorporate it or somehow work with it. I think that is being perceived quite well, to give this option. Yeah. If we come back toward the validation part, right. So first question was about, did the prototype answer the sprint questions? And then we were feeling yes. I mean, inside the group, we still had a couple of discussions, and we were not feeling comfortable. But yeah, looking back and reflecting back, I think we were quite more hard on ourselves than it was perceived by the users. So I think it's a justified yes, basically. Will the prototype probably address a long-term goal? I think it's a good starting point, but at the same time, we're not sure on how far it gets towards people putting into place and then working with colleagues inside that. So it was some kind of mix of yes and not sure. But also, do you think we addressed a challenge we took on as a team? And I think, and also the answers from us, we were confident that we and also happy that we were able to put ourselves together and come up with such a solution.
That's cool. Seems very positive.
Yeah. I mean, we as mentioned, we had a couple of discussions, but reflecting back, it was more that we try to be better always on some parts. And that somehow, so we were a little bit more critical towards ourselves first, but then we saw the user tests, and then they were quite different, let's say. And then we said, okay, well, maybe we should maybe in German. There's a saying in German, but I'm not able to. So basically, we were maybe a little bit too perfectionist, trying to make 100% or 180%, but users were already happy.
Yeah, just being too hard on yourself, basically.
Yeah. Right. So coming to the highlights here. So all in all, we have to say that we were quite a busy team. So people were very busy with their daily work schedules, but somehow still try to make it to come to those sessions, either partly or full, all of the time. And based on that, we were also able to gather a couple of highlights from the teams. Tim had the opinion that the openness to learn inside some kind of safe space that was really nice, and also that he would definitely recommend that to other people being interested in design sprints, and also in general design sprints, and also remote design sprints. Marco had some kind of the same opinion, and also that that he was amazed by the possibility to perform a prototype during the weekend besides the work, and also be able to get some kind of positive validation just in 1 week. Yeah. Right. And then also Valentina found it also very nice to have this kind of virtual setup, to work together with the team, and also to learn inside that process, and also to complement her already existing expertise at Accenture. So she was also very happy at it. Laura, I will then give back to you so that you can talk about your own experience.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, for me, it was working with great people and experiencing what can be achieved remotely and fast. I think, yeah, at the beginning, I was very like, so this was the first time I've been fully involved in a design sprint. Where I work, we offer design sprints to customers, but I never actually participated one myself, let alone virtually. So I was like really motivated at the beginning, following some of the LDJs that we had done, and yeah, and then we didn't get off to the best start because we didn't get many users for our first decision, and then we did for like the second one. But it all came together, and I think that's what made everything great. Everyone stayed motivated, everyone joined the calls, and I was really, really impressed with the prototype that came up. And yeah, I think from this is just like hoping that it's continued. But yeah, it was definitely sprint. I think that's the one thing that I would like to see, is this being implemented. So yes, we have the prototype, but there's nothing now after this to make everyone kind of stay in there afterwards. So there's a highlight, but there's also like a little bit of unsurety and of, okay, what happens next then? We've done all this work, we've got a prototype. Can we make sure that something happens? And I guess that comes up with, I've noticed one of the questions can help with maybe thinking about that as well.
Right. So thank you very much, Laura. Right. So maybe one last remark from my side. So, overall, I've been participating not only in this group, but also in other groups. And then the question, of course, for me was, okay, how do I follow up with this? And then I said, okay, well, also during I've been participating of the live sprint format from Matt and from Rakesh, and there we were also talking about some kind of personal challenges. And since I'm a fresh new freelancer, of course, every freelancer has his own challenges in getting sales done, yeah, and also having clients. So I said, okay, well, why don't we do an LDJ about that topic, and saying, okay, well, how to sell design sprints, or also how to find clients where we can all actually solve their problems. So the first LDJ was very well perceived by up to 15 people joining, and then we are also will be performing second virtual workshop. It will be a little bit more about the about the problem framing part before we go back into the ideation. Well, we will be doing that on December 9th at 8 o'clock CET. So if anyone's interested, feel free to let me know. There's my email address, and then I'm happy to include you into the session as well.
Oh, you're putting it on the live stream. Expecting a lot of spams there.
I don't know. Let's see.
Hopefully in a good way.
Yeah.
Cool.
Right. This was I think that was the last picture here. It was really nice. It was about what we were thinking about our team and our first association, and how we would write that down. And then people were coming up with different areas. Yeah, diverse, open-minded, flexible, very connected to each other. That we all came up and turned up, and also be present and showed commitment. That we had a goal in mind and we attacked. That we had some kind of organic, teamwork where we self-complement each other without having, we of course had some kind of responsibilities, but we were quite quite organic in the way that how we worked towards each other. So it was very proactive. People just jumped in when they saw some kind of missing path, and then they just complemented each other. What? 1 second. Right. And then we also had here, not able to see it. Right, we were also questioning methods, which was very well positively perceived. And just overall, what I was pinning down here was we started with a lot of question marks in our heads and somehow got together and got it working. That also then ended up in satisfaction, of course. Right. Having said that, we have 2 questions. The first question is, I believe this could be a great concept to have adopted by the GVDS curator to curate community experiences. I think that's a statement. Not sure. I don't want to comment on it, but surely this experience here is very so. This prototype or all the things we have been performing are open to being utilized on later stages. Yeah, of course, we would be very happy if that somehow would find its way in another GVDS, or if either the organization or another group would like to follow up with it. That would be great. Or if there is some kind of possibility where people turn up and say, okay, well, why don't we try to work out something together? I think we are open to that, and very happy if someone turns up. And what 2 features would you prioritize a launch of such a platform? Like the key features of such a platform are, I would say, the first key feature would, of course, the feedback possibility and sharing in different community platforms, because this is how you make this platform a live platform, because people engage towards each other and they talk towards each other, they discuss, come to new insights, and then they try to apply it. And the second would actually be that they find a structure where they can put their own story inside, and giving them such a structure where everyone sees where to find what. I think that's basically what is important. Laura, is there anything you would like to add to it?
No, like you said, it's a learning platform, isn't it? So it's more like the feature of being able to document their story, get feedback, and then be able to see others. And a lot of it's there already. It was just more about maybe the names of what different things were. So it's like, the confusion of what does it mean of story and stuff. So I think a lot of it is ready to go. There wouldn't be necessarily 2 features we would prioritize. I think we could prioritize what's there and just make sure it's worked. I think it's quite hard to say 2 to make it a good learning process, because you'd want to facilitate the feedback, you want the sharing, you'd want the library, all of it kind of combined together. So it's quite hard, I think. Too restrictive a question.
I think
That's
that
true.
question came to push you guys to move this thing forward.
Well, we need Tim and Jordi to be here. They're the ones that are doing the product development, so they know more what's realistic. We could have aspirational too.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. Last question. Actually, I have one for my personal interest. Like, have your team discussed on any plan on moving this forward, or what would you like to see as a next step, like in your point of view?
We were thinking we were a little bit time-wise with the last session short on time. So what we said is that we actually give people a little bit more time to reflect, because we had multiple people also working on several weeks. And I think this is what every one of us needs a little bit time on. Okay, well, how, if I want to pursue that, how can I do that with my personal life, besides of having a full-time job and maybe also children, or maybe also other responsibilities. So that was, of course, some kind of question we had in mind. So what we will definitely do, that we will come up with on a later stage with some kind of meeting where we think about how to drive this further, either being actively or passively involved in it.
Great. And Laura, do you have anything to add to that?
No, I think I added, like I said, what I wanted to say before is just to, make sure that this kind of keeps momentum and continues. Yes. Another reflection would be why I thought I was really impressed with everyone's commitment, because everyone was continuing to work during that week. They were still involved with sprints from the week before, but also an advantage to that was the bringing and learning experiences from previous sprints into this one, which give good responses to my questions as well when I was kind of digging for deeper understanding. So yeah, I think it all went well, and I'd be very interested to join another one for experience. Maybe a lot of it was quite late in the evening. Maybe I would like to do one that was more during the day when I felt a little bit more. Yeah, that was the challenge, I think.
Yeah.
All right, cool. So we have roughly 2 minutes left, and I know that Laura has a call that is to jump to. I would like to, actually, we have 1 minute left. Let's do a lightning kudo. So I'll give you 20 seconds, just very quickly, if you would like to thank your team or say anything to your team. Okay, timer started.
First.
First.
Oh, do I go first?
Yes.
Okay, so to my team, I think we did a wonderful job. We're perfect. I think we just nailed it. Maybe being too hard on ourselves somehow draw us towards that. And looking back at the interviews and see how they reflect to it, I think well done.
Oh, awesome. Okay, Laura, your turn.
For me, I was really impressed. I was a little bit apprehensive at the beginning, having not met anyone before, and it was just going straight into a work environment. I felt really welcome. I felt like my questions were heard and listened to. There was no judgment. I would really like to get a date in the diary to maybe reflect on all this and to see how we can move forward with that prototype.
Okay, awesome. So that was really, really great. And I hope that you really enjoyed the GVDS section, and we will be having another showcase coming up roughly in 5 hours. So stay tuned. And thank you for anyone who's tuning in on YouTube and Zoom. And thank you, Laura and Mehmet, for presenting. And we will see you next time.
Thank you, Sandy.
Okay.
Bye.
Thank you very much, Sandy. Bye-bye.
Bye.